Hi there, it's Rosie here from Knitting on Cloud 9, and I'm very privileged to have been asked to help out with Knitting Hearts for COVID-19 and supporting key workers and supporting families in hospitals in such horrible circumstances. So I thought I would just provide a step-by-step tutorial if there is somebody at home who needs a bit of a refresh on how to knit and can't really remember what to do. Then I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide to do the basic knit pattern, and I'm going to do the basic crochet pattern in a minute as well. So the patterns that I posted up I'm basically just going to follow them through step by step so you can see exactly what you need to do. Now, ideally, these are pictures of examples of the hearts that you can make. This is the one-sided version where it's just one heart, and this is two-sided version and being stuffed in the middle. So they're two very different sizes because of the wool that I've used to make them. So ideally, I would suggest that if you're doing the one-sided heart, if you're a complete beginner, then you're using something like super chunky yarn and 10mm needles. So it'll be needles that are this thick. That's what I'm going to be using tonight, just because it makes it really easy for you to see what I'm doing, and yarn that looks like this thick. Now, if you're struggling to get a hold of this kind of stuff, then you can always send me a message on my Facebook page and I'll see if I can help out with that. Or if it's stuff that you've got in the house that you want to use up, then most likely you will have double knitting wool, which is much finer. It's going to look like this. Now, what I suggest you do, and what I did to make this little heart, in terms of size, this one's about 8cm big and this is 14cm big. Obviously with this one, I think maybe some additional embellishing could happen as well. We're going to do it in a nice bright colour, so I'm going to show you it in the dark pink. But anyway, going back to the smaller one, if you have got lots of thin wool at home, you can still use that. If you have double knitting, which is going to look a bit like this, then use two strands of it together, which is what I did, and knit with it as if that was your yarn, and that will give you what we call a chunky yarn effect. And you would want to use 6mm needles for that, which are needles that look like this. Now, if you don't have any in the house, then use chopsticks. Okay, so use what you've got at home if you're struggling to get out. So that's all you need is chopsticks. It's not going to be as good as a nice professional pair of knitting needles, but it will do the job and you will get a lot of satisfaction out of it and you'll get used to them. Yeah, they're perfectly usable. So I'm not going to show you how to do the little heart because it's the same as the big one, but this is likely to be what you're going to have kicking about the house and what most people will have lots of spares of. So two strands together, use a pair of 6mm needles or chopsticks, and I think they look much nicer with the double-sided heart and a little bit of stuffing in the middle. These are pretty gorgeous actually, so that is a solution for that. Okay, but we're going to do, I'm just going to show you how to do the heart pattern for complete beginners or people who've forgotten what to do. So the simple heart pattern tells us to cast on 2 stitches. So we just need to put some loops on our needle to begin with, and we need 2 of them. So you've got your tail on the left and your working yarn on the right. So what I want you to do is just grip onto your tail and give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Then your thumb goes down the back of the yarn and up the front, so you've got a loop on your finger. Then I just want you to knit it off your finger, so you're going in, round, through and off. Keep it nice and tight, because if you let it go, the whole thing falls apart. So do that thing again for me, please. So grip, thumb goes down the back, up the front, in, round, through and off. So that's you got your 2 stitches on your needle and you're ready to start. So the first row says S1, which means slip 1. So that just means transfer the first stitch from one needle to the other. Move it without knitting it, just move it across. And then knit 1. So to knit that stitch, you go in to that stitch, round, push it down and through, and off like that. Okay, so that's you done your 2 stitches and your first row. Now moving on to row, sorry, that was the first row, yeah. So moving on to row 2, with the heart shape, you're kind of thrown into learning how to do increasing right from the word go, because we have to create the sides of the heart, and we need to move outwards from the sharp point at the bottom. So you're getting thrown straight into learning how to increase. So increase is also known as KFB, which is knit into the front and back of the stitch. It's written on your pattern under special abbreviations: increase, knit into the front and back of the stitch, also known as KFB. So row 2 says increase into both stitches knitwise, and that's going to double up our stitches from 2 to 4. Okay, so to do an increase, what you do is you go into the stitch. Okay, so you've got that little loop at the bottom, that little bump at the bottom. So you always go over that bump and you go into the loop like that. You go round the back, you go through and under, and then you stop at this point. Separate your needles to create some space. You're not taking that loop off as you would normally do to complete the stitch, but you are then circling. I'm trying to get it so that you can see what I'm doing really well here. You're going into the back of that loop that's left on your needle. So you're going into the back of it, and then you're knitting it off. Yarn over and off. And we'll do that again because we need to do it twice. In, round, through, stop, leave the loop on, stretch just to create some space, flip your needle into the back of that loop and knit it off. Okay, so that's you now got 4 stitches on your needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. So row 3 then says increase into the first stitch and knit to the end. So what we're basically doing now is we are increasing in the first stitch until we get 14 stitches on our needle. So just the very first stitch, we're going to do that KFB. So in, round, through, stop, leave the left stitch on, stretch, flip the needle into the back of the loop, yarn round, through and off. Okay, and then you're doing basic knitting, which is just in, round, through and off, in, round, through and off, in, round, through and off. Okay, so I'll show you how to do one more row, and then I'm going to sort of do the time-lapse thing to make it go faster. So we're going to increase at the beginning of the next row again. So it's in, round, through, stop, left loop still on, stretch, flip the needle into the back of the loop, round, through, through and off. Okay, and then knit to the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I should be increasing my stitches every time. So I've now got 2, 4, 6. So you have to repeat that. So I have repeated that increase row, which is the knit into front and back of the stitch at the beginning of every row until I had 14 stitches. So I've now got 14 stitches, and then I also did the subsequent 2 more steps, which was knit 2 more rows in plain knitting. So I'm up to the point of dividing. So your knitting should look like this. It should look like a nice pointed shape at the bottom. So we're now going to divide to do the bumps at the top of the heart. So the pattern says knit 7, turn and just work on these 7 stitches. So knit 7, 2, 4, 6, 7. We're going to turn and just work on these, and so we don't get confused, I'm going to take the second set of 7 stitches and I'm going to move them away onto a stitch holder. so that it doesn't confuse us in any way. So if you don't have a stitch holder, you can just put them on a bit of yarn. You can leave them on your needle, but you have to be careful not to get mixed up with those other stitches. Okay, so then we have knit 7 we've turned, and we're now doing 2 rows just on these 7 stitches. So 2 rows of plain knit. Then we're asked to do decreasing, so we're doing knit 1 and this thing called K2 tog. So in the abbreviations, that just means knit 2 stitches together, and we're starting to decrease now. So knit 1, K2 tog. So I usually put my needle in my first stitch to give it a wee stretch, but to knit 2 stitches together we actually have to go through 2 stitches at the same time. So my needle is going through 2 stitches at the same time, if you can see, 2 stitches, and then we're going round, through and off as before, and then we have to knit to the last 3 stitches, so 1 stitch really, and then I've got only got 3 left. So and then we do K2 tog again and knit 1. Okay, then we do a plain knit row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I should only have 5 stitches left. And then the next row is knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together again, K2 tog, knit 1, K2 tog. So again, into the first stitch, stretch it a little, into 2 stitches at the same time, yarn round, through and off as normal, knit 1, and then knit 2 together again. Okay, pull that over. I've got 3 stitches left now. I do 1 more knit row, and then I do the final row, which is slip 1. So S1 is slip 1, transfer the stitch from one needle to the other without knitting at all, and then knit 2 together as we've been doing, and then grab that first stitch, the slip stitch, and pass it over. PSSO is pass slip stitch over. So now we must cut a tail, pull on the needle to create a giant stitch, tuck your tail through your giant stitch, pull it nice and tight, and that's you got the first side of your heart done. So now we are going to pop the stitches, the 7 stitches where we turned, back onto our needle, and we're going to rejoin the yarn to those 7 stitches, just as simply as taking your tail of your yarn, and all I do is just hold it on the back of my work, just gently hold it so that it doesn't like unravel or pull right through. And then we've got to knit the rest of that row. If you remember, when we divided, we knitted 7 and we stopped and turned, and we didn't complete this row. So we need to complete this row to bring us up to the point that we were at, and then we go back to the instructions where we did the divide, and then we follow them exactly again to create a mirror image on the other side. So we've now to do 2 rows plain, 2 rows knit stitch, plain knitting. That's 1. You can always tighten up your tail a bit if it loosens, where you join the yarn in. So that's 2. This is row 2. And then we get back to our decreasing again. So it is knit 1, knit 2 together, 2 together, knit 1, and then a knit row, for 5 stitches, and then knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together, and then knit again, 1, 2, 3, and then the final row, slip 1, knit 2 together, pass slip stitch over, cut your tail, giant stitch, pull the tail through, draw up, and there you have it. So where you joined your yarn would generally be the wrong side, and if you flip it round, there you've got your heart. So obviously I've used super chunky for this project. I don't expect that you would do that, and the hearts probably don't need to be as big as this, but I think you would get away with not doing 2 sides to this particular heart. I think you could do a one-sided heart, but what I'm probably going to do with mine is add a little bit of additional embellishment to just make them really special given the circumstances. So I might cut some contrasting fabric in a smaller heart and sew that on with a little button. I might put some ribbon or contrasting yarn around. I'll post up some pictures when I've got these done, but this for a beginner is a no nonsense, non-technical, very good pattern to use just to get the basic concept of a heart.